What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day, and welcome back to the Armory. As always, the Armory is a podcast where we be breaking down kind of what it means to be a leader and talk about various different leadership traits to go along with it. Today, I got my amazing father, leadership coach, as a co-host today, or a fill-in host, whatever you want to call that.
Yep. Well, very happy to be here. I appreciate the invite, and I know that the audience would prefer Josh, but unfortunately, he is busy. He is out of town still, and now you just got to scrape the bottom of the barrel for whoever you can get to co-host.
That's right. That's right. So
that's me.
Drag this guy in.
Yeah.
Didn't want to, but I had to get the podcast out, right?
It'll be the worst episode you've had, but
yeah, 100%. Yeah. But what are we talking about today, Jason?
Well, we are going to talk about what I think is, when I think about the demographic you're trying to reach, right? And that is young people. And young people who are trying to better themselves, who are trying to up level in life, trying to point their life in a certain direction so they know where they're going and find their purpose, right? And you're looking for people, or you're trying to reach people who are trying to be better versions of themselves and be better leaders. And if you want to be a great leader of people, it all begins with learning to lead yourself first. And this demographic you're after, your age bracket is, it's the best lesson we can give that age bracket is learning how to lead yourself, because it's one of those things where you're not going to be an effective leader of others until you do. And in fact, the lessons you learn in leading yourself are the lessons you'll take to lead others, right? So nobody's going to follow somebody who can't lead themselves.
Yeah.
So when we're trying to determine what our lives are going to be or get on the right track, and I highly recommend people do it at the youngest age possible, then learning to lead yourself is where we begin. So it just felt like a good topic for the demographic you're trying to reach out to.
Yeah, I agree with you said something about the age.
You already forgot?
Well,
it was that impactful that you already forgot.
No, I don't know why. I can't remember what you said. Start now or whatever. Start as young as you can. And I agree, because I feel like so many people have that mentality of, oh, I'm in high school, I'm a teenager, let me just have fun now, because it doesn't really matter right now, because then I'll go get my job when I'm older, then I can't have this kind of fun. And I completely disagree with that.
Yeah.
That's why, I started so young.
Yep. It's one of those things where, if you want to be average, do what average people do. And average people they fall into the trap of, hey, I'm young, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be having fun all the time. I'm supposed to be experimenting with different things. I'm supposed to be drinking, smoking dope, doing all the things. This is the age you're supposed to do that. It's the age to have fun. And you can live by that, but you are pulling yourself back to average is what you're doing. And what I try to tell young people is, look, you can do that. That is an option on the table, or you can get a head start on everybody else. And I'm a big believer in the harder you make your life now, the easier it will be later.
Yeah.
The easier you make your life now, the harder it's going to be later. And it's a choice, right? And being a leader of your life is a decision. You have to make that decision that I am trying to lead myself in a certain direction. I want to start at 18, 19, 20 years old. I don't want to wait until I'm 27 to put the pieces back together and try to recoup those 10 years that I've lost. I want to start now. That is a decision. And you do not have to make that decision. You can absolutely be average. That is on the table for you. Or you can decide to be different. And the people who are different are the ones that will make life easier for themselves later.
Yeah. I cannot agree more. And I think building a good foundation is how you're going to set yourself up for the rest of your life. And it's hard to build a foundation when you're 27 years old and you've had a life of no foundation. It's hard to start from there. But when you're starting from a young age and you're starting from this is what you're learning, you're making this your roots are going to be rooted in leadership and all this bettering yourself and not all the partying and living for the earth, that by the time you're 27, you have all the roots you need and you're already going to be way ahead of everybody else. But starting at 27 with roots of partying and living for the world, how are you supposed to combat 27 years of living a completely different life? It's way harder than starting with, 16. You only started getting conscious, a year ago, starting to realize growing up, maturity, all that's just starting to happen now. So if you're starting your roots then, rather than you've already matured and you've matured in the lens of partying and all that kind of stuff, living a whole different life of not bettering yourself or getting closer with God, it's completely different because you've matured in that era rather than maturing in the era of bettering yourself and being a leader.
I love that. And first of all, this is quick side note. One of the things I like about your podcast is the differences between you and Josh. Josh is so laid back, and you're like high energy passion. I'm high energy passion. So now we got two high energy passion guys going. So we'll see how this comes off. It'll be interesting. But you said something in what you just said that I really loved. You said living for the world. And that's a great way to phrase it, because when people fall back to average, that's what they're doing. They're living for the world. And, I do coach a lot of young people and teaching them how to lead themselves better. And one of the things I tell them is, look, you're going to have people around you, and we're going to cover this more in depth later in this episode, but you're going to have people around you who are trying to convince you that living for the world is the right way. I'm a big believer, if everyone's running this way, it's probably best practices to run that way. Yeah. And when you see the people around you, young people smoking dope, drinking, partying, doing that, it's not that we can't have fun. It's not that we can't have a social life. You have a robust social life. But there's none of those things involved. There's none of those detrimental things involved in your social life, right? So this is not, hey, let's spend all our time in the basement studying and having no fun. But the point is, we can have fun. We can still socialize. We can still be young without the bad decisions that come with it. And I think the world tells us differently, that you have to do those things to have a real childhood. And I just vehemently disagree with that. And some of this is based off things I've learned over my life, and some of it's mistakes I made when I was in here. I didn't have the wisdom you have at your age. I didn't have that outlook. I went to the University of Florida, and I, had a good time while I was there. Go Gators! I had a good time while I was there, and I stayed away from drugs. Very proud to say that, but I drank and did things like that, and I wish I didn't. I don't look back on that phase of my life with pride. I set myself back. I don't look back saying, man, thank God I did that. I look back and say, man, what if I had not done that? I could have been further along in my life at an earlier time. If I would have learned how to lead myself back then, but I did not know how to do that. So I really want young people to look at things from a different lens and realize you do not have to live the way the world is telling you to live. And if the people around you are trying to coax you into that, I said this to somebody the other day. It's funny. If you were going to go get life advice, like how to live a better life, or how to make money, or how to be healthy and fit, or whatever you're trying to look for, would you go to a 17, 18, 19-year-old for that advice? Probably not.
Yeah.
But then when an 18, 19, 20-year-old tells you it's okay to smoke dope and drink, we take that advice. It's kind of an odd thing. So, be careful who you're surrounding yourself with, and be careful who you're taking your life advice from. You can get a head start on life right now, or you can be behind the eight ball.
I think it's a very good point. I'm just gonna hone in on what you said about would you go to a 17-year-old, and then put myself in this podcast in there. I'm 18, but same thing. And my brother is 20 now, so 18 and 20. And you might think, okay, so then why are we listening to you? Well, here's the thing: we're not that far ahead of anybody, really, because we are young and we are still trying to figure this out. We aren't just leadership coaches. We don't just know leadership, but what we're doing is we have knowledge, and we're researching, and we're trying to become a better leader every single day. And so what we're actually trying to do is walk this journey with all you guys watching. We're not like, okay, we're not up here trying to teach you, okay, you need to do this and that, because we're not fully 100% sure on what you need to do. We're trying to figure that out, so we're trying to do this together with you, and you guys come along the journey as we all figure out how to become leaders together.
Yeah, it's interesting, because that's a good segue into kind of how we'll start the conversation. You have set yourself up in the right way in that perspective. It's like you guys, to teach other people, to coach other people, you don't have to be years and decades ahead of them. You really just need to be one chapter ahead in the book.
Yeah.
So if I'm teaching a book and I'm one chapter ahead of you, I haven't completed the whole book. I don't have all the answers. I don't know how it's going to end, but I'm one chapter ahead of you, so I can teach you. And if I am one chapter ahead of you, I can keep that to myself. You and Josh could absolutely sit here and say, we're learning these great things. We are trying to be better. We're trying to rise above average. And everything we learn on that journey, we're going to keep it to ourselves. You could do that, but that's not what leaders do. So you're trying to share the knowledge and share the wealth. And that is going to be, sometimes you have the answers. Sometimes it's going to be you screwed up. Yeah. And you're going to share that screw up with everybody else so they don't make the same mistake. But the thing that you guys have done So when I teach, okay, self-leadership, the first two things are, and this is what I think you and Josh have done well, and what you're trying to share with everybody, is it starts with making the decision that I'm going to be a leader. I want to be a leader in this world. And once you make that decision, then it becomes, okay, well, how am I going to be a leader in this world? And that can look a lot of different ways. But it starts with learning to lead yourself. Because when you learn to lead yourself, you're going to make better decisions. It's going to put you on a path. It's going to create the vision for your life that we all need. Right? But then it's going to force you into becoming the person you need to become to do that.
Yeah.
And as you become that person, the lessons you learn along the way are the ones that you will take to teach other people, or the ones you'll take to lead other people. But if you cannot lead yourself, A, you won't have the skills to lead others. B, you will not have the knowledge to lead others. But C, you won't have, and this is what I think people miss, you won't have the credibility to lead others.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think what you and Josh have done, and I think what you're trying to pull people in to do with you, is make the decision that starting at this age, I'm going to be a leader. I'm not going to wait until I partied and done all the dumb stuff first. No, I'm going to learn to be a leader now. And you watch what your ability to lead will look like in 10 years compared to the person who starts in 10 years. Having a decade head start it's almost impossible to catch up with. Yeah. So I think that's what you guys have done a good job of. And then, okay, to parlay on that, it's this. It's, okay, I've made a decision to be a leader. I'm going to lead myself. But then we have to start with, what is the current reality of the situation? And I think this is what you kind of went through this metamorphosis 8-9 months ago. It's like, okay, well, I want to be a leader, but I've got to lead myself. But I'm doing a really poor job of that.
Yep.
It was facing reality. Is you weren't there. You didn't know how to do it. You were not doing a good job of it. And I recommend that to anyone watching. And if you want to be a better leader of you, you've got to live in reality. You cannot convince yourself that things are better than they really are. Nope. You can't lie to yourself that you are in a better situation than you really are. You can't convince yourself that you have strengths that you really don't have. You can't lie to yourself and say, you know what, I can wait, or I can do it in 10 years. We have to live in reality. And the reality says this: you have shortcomings that we have to overcome. You have strengths that we need to lean into. We have areas of our life that aren't performing in the way we want them to perform. And we have to live in reality of that. So we make the decision that we need to be better. Then we live in reality of what our current situation really is. So we know where we have to lean into, the things we have to change, the things we have to overcome to accomplish those things. That's the first two steps of learning how to lead ourselves.
And what sucks about it is the truth effing sucks.
It hurts, man.
It sucks. It hurts, especially for somebody like myself who is naturally prideful, naturally egotistical. Like I've throughout my life thought I'm more than I am, better than I am.
Can I correct you? I don't think you're egotistical. I think you can be prideful.
Yeah.
And we can talk about what the difference is, but I think you're prideful, and I think that's where you can get into trouble.
Yeah, because I have been prideful, and being prideful is I have these walls of no one could tell me I'm wrong because I can't be wrong because I'm right. And so for somebody like me, try accepting the truth that I'm not where I need to be, I'm not who I am, and when somebody is criticizing me, it freaking sucks. So I know it sucks, and I know you have dealt with me, forever, and you can explain better how I've acted in my life, but like received feedback, and it's not been well. It has not been good.
It's interesting what you say. I want to go back on something you said, then I'm going to address that last statement. But one of my favorite quotes of all time is, you said, the truth hurts. The truth does hurt. But the alternative to truth is lying to yourself, right? So if the truth hurts, be very honest with you, the truth hurts, but lies kill. So when we lie to ourselves, it kills. It kills our life, it kills our dreams, it kills our ambitions, because we don't live in reality. So we've got to live in reality if we're going to do the right things to become better leaders of ourselves and others. So, but that last statement, about how hard it is, or the things you've had to overcome, or the fact that you were prideful and that was hard to deal with, there's some truth in that, of course. But when we live in reality and we do a real honest assessment of our life and where we're at, and as compared to where we want to go, the greatest gift that gives you is what I think is the number one most important leadership skill we can have, and that's humility.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So when we live in reality and we realize, A, my life's not what I thought it would be to this point, or B, I'm not doing the right things to get it there, or C, maybe I'm not as amazing as I thought I was. You know, we all grow up and mommy and daddy tell us how special we are. Most of us are not that special. We have to develop into being special. So you might be special to your mom and dad as in they love you, but are you, exceptionally gifted? Most people aren't. So when we lean into reality and realize we have a long way to go, and most of us do, it's very humbling. Yep. And it's really hard to be prideful when you live in reality. It's very easy to be prideful when you're lying to yourself.
And actually, I'll go a step further. It's hard to be prideful when you have a true, real relationship with Christ. You cannot be prideful and also believe that Jesus died on the cross for you, because they contradict each other like crazy. Mm-hmm. So when you fully believe that Jesus died on the cross for you, you can't be prideful, because you know that you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be all that. But you know that you can try, and you can try to be better, and you can try to be better. That's true humility. Not like lukewarm Christianity is my favorite example. In there, I read my Bible, I go to church, I do all these things. Like, I'm good where I'm at. They're complacent in that. And like, I'm chilling right here. I could talk to some guy. I know a few Bible verses off the cuff. I could tell him. I check all the boxes. That's not being humble, because those people think they're better than somebody who doesn't believe, or someone who's trying to believe. They think they're better than someone who doesn't go to church, or someone who believes but doesn't go to church, because they think church is they go every Sunday, and that's the key, that's the way.
Yeah, so it's a good point. And when you look at the way Jesus lived his life, if we're being honest, I mean, the people that Jesus interacted with, sitting down with sinners and helping prostitutes and things like that, was he better than them in a lot of ways? Probably. Did he think of himself as better?
No.
He did not.
He did not.
And the one human that's ever walked this earth that could have thought that way was Jesus.
Right.
And he did not. And I think when you understand the way we talk about leadership, right? And what we'll talk about if we get around to it in this episode is one of the things we want to do as we become the person who's going to be a great leader. So, because that's one of the things you can talk about also. Okay, we made a decision to be a great leader. We have determined what our reality is, what we want to be, who we really are today, and how do we close that gap. And then we determine who is the person we want to be, right? Who do we have to become to realize that goal and that dream of being a great leader? And one of the things we do along that journey is decide the content that we're going to consume, right? So what content are we going to consume to be the best leader we can be?
Yeah.
Well, I tell people, if the Bible isn't one of those pieces of the content, you're making a huge mistake. And the reason that is because the greatest leader that's ever lived is Jesus Christ.
Yep.
And if you look at the way he lived his life and the things he did, the humility he lived with, the service he provided to others, his whole goal in life was to raise up others, not to raise up himself, to raise up others, is one of the greatest leadership lessons you'll ever have. And when you start to compare your ability to lead or your ability to navigate your life to the way Jesus did, you realize how far behind you really are.
Yep.
And if you're honest about that, that should bring nothing but humility to you.
100%.
We are never going to be Jesus, but we should absolutely try to be as close to that as we possibly can.
Yep.
No one will never get there. And if you live with that level of humility, you will by default become a great leader. That's why it's the number one leadership trait is humility, because it pushes us to serve others. Mm-hmm. It does not allow us to place ourselves above others. And when you talk about Christians who do that, they think they're better than you because they go to church or they know more scripture than you. I mean, that is pontification at its greatest. That is simply the opposite of what I think Jesus taught. They're doing that out of pride.
Mm-hmm. Right. Therefore, they don't truly have that relationship with Jesus because they are so prideful and they think there's something that they're not. And I love the word complacency. It's one of my favorites. I think I heard it from you, getting complacent. And I've gotten to that point like recently more recently, and then I got it again like 2-3 months ago. I've gotten to points of complacency, and then what does God do? He knocks me on my butt every single time, and he says, no, you're not where you think you are. You're not who you think you are. keep trying because I'll get to this point when I'm comfortable. I'm like, okay, I like where I'm at leadership wise. Like I'm feeling good. I'm whatever. And then I get comfortable and I stop. I'm on this uphill slope and I stop because I've gotten comfortable on where I'm at. And every single time God has this way of, no, it knocks me right on my butt and something happens. Something happens to show me that you're not who you think you are and where you think you are.
Yeah. I think complacency is, it's the old quote, what is the enemy of great, right? The enemy of great is good.
Yeah.
Like once we get good, it's hard to motivate yourself to want to be great because things are good. Things are comfortable, right? And if you think about human nature, if you want to go a little bit into psychology here, just basic psychology is as humans, we are wired to run towards pleasure and away from pain. Right. So if you understand that, and it's a survival technique, right? It's how we've survived all this time as a species is if that's painful, I'm going to run away from that and towards the thing that's comfortable. That is a natural human nature. That's why I always say, I don't think people are innately lazy. I think that we are naturally, all of us, energy conservers, right? We conserve our energy. That is a natural human response. As part of the human condition is to conserve our energy, right? And that can look like being lazy. We have to fight that urge, and we have to, lean into making ourselves uncomfortable. And that has to be an absolute part of our daily existence is embracing discomfort, even though it goes against all of our instincts.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
100%. And there's a book, one of my favorite books of all time by Michael Easter called The Comfort Crisis. I recommend it to anybody. But just it goes into, and man, have I seen it manifest itself in my life, of the concept of we are creatures of comfort and we seek out comfort. And once we're comfortable, it becomes really hard to make ourselves be uncomfortable. So the minute we rise to a certain level in life and we get comfortable, things are good, it's painful to elevate that to great.
100%.
It's comfortable to stay where you're at, right? So we're going to default. Our default is going to be stay comfortable. But we have to have the mental toughness and discipline. And no matter what we talk about in life, no matter what the goal, no matter what we're trying to go after, we can never escape the need for discipline and mental toughness. It's always going to be there. So we have to have the mental toughness and discipline to lean into greatness and not be comfortable just being good. It's really hard to do. And I would submit to you, most people won't do it. Most people will not. They will stay comfortable. They will stay complacent.
Which that's fine if you want to be average.
Absolutely. So here's a question, though, and I'll ask you what your thoughts are on this. When people talk about being good and being comfortable, and they tell you, I'm just fine where I'm at. I'm comfortable. Do you believe that that's really how they feel?
No, they're trying to convince themselves that that's how they are. So they tell themselves and they tell other people, and they're like, "Yeah, I am comfortable. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good."
Yep.
They're trying to convince themselves, but they're in deep down they know they're not.
I agree with that, and maybe it is not true across the board 100%, but I would say a large majority of people that is true for is we not only get comfortable, and that not only does that complacency now is it not the antithesis of greatness, but then we lie to ourselves, and that goes back to living in reality, right? If I can recommend one thing that all of us could do today is start to live in reality. Where are you really right now, and where is it that you really, really want to go? And don't try to soften that with, when we determine where we are today compared to where we want to go. And to your point, we try to convince ourselves that we're okay with where we're at today. But if we really, in a moment of truth, would say, no, I actually want to be here, right? But having that honest conversation with yourself, and don't lie to yourself and say, A, I don't really want it, or B, it's too hard to get there. That's living in reality. It's a great example of that. But I think being pulled back to average and convincing yourself that you're comfortable is one of the worst things we can do in life. And it's interesting because if you look at people who grew up poor or desolate or had, a lot of disadvantages in life, you see this with celebrities. They'll say this a lot about themselves, right? You see people who've reached a high level of fame and fortune, a lot of them came from very poor backgrounds.
Yep.
So they had that monkey on their back. They had that chip on their shoulder. And they used that monkey on their back, that chip on their shoulder, to reach greatness. And then the kids that they have and the kids they raise grow up rich. And very rarely does a celebrity's child become as great as they were, because they don't have that chip. Because why? They grew up with comfort.
Yep.
They grew up with complacency. They had mommy and daddy's money, and they didn't have to do it anymore. So it's creating an environment in ourselves, in our lives, in our minds that we are not going to accept comfort, that comfort is not good enough. Greatness is what we're seeking. Excellence is what we're seeking. And seeking excellence and greatness is the opposite of comfort. And it's a decision we have to make, and we have to strive for that every day and fight. So the fact that you get complacent, the fact that I get complacent, the fact that most people do is natural. It's normal. So what I'm telling you guys is that is a normal human condition issue. But we have to have the mental toughness and discipline and desires and belief in ourselves and self-worth to fight for excellence. And it will be a fight.
Could not agree more.
Yeah.
Well said.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So let me ask you this question. So when you look at the demographic that this podcast is reaching, young people trying to strive for greatness, you hang around those people. You have a friend group. You know that you're around your age group a lot. What do you think the biggest hindrance is to 18 to 22-year-olds being able to lead themselves? What do you think is holding them back? What do you think? Is it self-doubt? Is it I have plenty of time? Is it parental stuff? Like, what do you think holds your age bracket back from striving to be a great leader of themselves today so they can be a great leader of others tomorrow?
I think there's two things. One is believing in themselves, like actually believing that they can be a great leader and they can be great and they can do all these things. Actually believing that, because to me, honestly, men are getting real soft and like, well, I can't be like David Goggans. Like he's too good. I can't be like a George Janko. Like these guys are way ahead of me. I'll never be like that. So why even try? Because I can't be like that. So I think not believing it and trying to tell yourself otherwise to feel more comfortable, and then getting out of your comfort zone. People don't want to do that because it's hard. Doing the hard shit, it sucks. Getting uncomfortable is hard, and they don't want to do that. And I also think it's humility and realization. Like they're not living in reality. Those people don't live in the reality. So somebody who like they're like, oh no, I'm a great athlete. Like I'm good. I don't need to be that because I'm already this. Like the reality is, yes, you do, because God calls you to be that. They don't live in the reality of who they are and whatever. They won't accept the fact that they're not where they want to be because they don't have the humility for that.
So I'm ask you another question, and let's use the world of athletics for this. You take two people who have a lot of talent. Take an 18-year-old high school senior, 17-year-old high school senior who's a gifted football player, and another one who's also a gifted football player. One of them busts their ass to be great. They're in the gym every day. They're working on their skills. They have coaches. They go to bed at a good time. They're not partying on the weekends. They're doing all the right things. And the other person's making a different decision. They are partying. This blows my mind, but you've told me that the football team you were on one time, that before games, there'd be football players in the bathroom getting high before the game.
Yep.
Blows my mind.
Yep.
Right? What's the difference between that guy and the one who's busting his ass to be great?
I mean, other than the obvious, the one guy's a freaking loser.
No, I don't mean from that perspective. I mean, why are they making such different decisions for themselves? What is the crux of that? What is the cause of this one making the decision to not lean into their skills, not work hard, get high, and this one is doing everything they can do to be great, even though they also have talent?
Because one has humility, one doesn't. One thinks, oh, I'm already good enough. I can do whatever the heck I want. The other thinks, I'm not good enough. Even though he might be really good, he still thinks he's not good enough. He's got the humility to know that I could be better. He's got the growth mentality. I still can be better. I'm still going to try every single day to get better. And the other one doesn't care.
Yeah,
because he thinks he's already good enough. Yeah,
that's interesting. I think that's one of the reasons it could be. I think another one can also be that one believes in themselves and one doesn't. So yeah. I think it'd be both. So I like that answer. And I think it's also a good segue into, okay, so we talk about you make a decision that you want to be a leader, right? And that starts with a decision to lead yourself. And then we have to explore reality. Where am I currently compared to where I want to be, right? And then how do I become the person that is that thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that and I'm going to attach it back to something you just said in a second, but I think we have to decide to be high character. I think we have decided to be men of integrity.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that we have to be great decision makers. So if I think, okay, here's where I am, here's my reality, here's where I want to be, well, the bridge that overcomes that gap is integrity, character, decision making, and having a vision, setting my values. Who am I going to be as a man, right? Who do I want to be as a man? Figuring out what those values are, that I want to be a high character person, that I want to be a person of high value, right? That I want to be a person who does the right thing and makes good decisions. And I think that, and this is where I'll tie it back to what you said, but also somebody who leans heavily into their growth. And I think that anybody who's looking to be a great leader, you have to be a growth-minded individual. You have to be somebody who is never or fights the complacency that you talk about, or somebody who is not okay just being good, right? And we have to be growth-minded. I think as a leader, we talk about the one thing you need to have is humility. And it's that humility that causes us to grow. If I look at myself as a leader, right? So I think, well, I want to be a great leader, right? There's ego in that. I want to be a great leader. So I think we all have ego. And I think ego can be a positive thing. I think pride is, we confuse ego and pride. I think pride can very rarely be a good thing, but ego can be a good thing, because ego is a thing that calls us to do the hard thing, that makes us believe in ourselves that we can do the hard thing. And I think there's some beauty in that. But it's humility that says, but if I'm going to do that hard thing, I've got to be a better version of myself.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be a great athlete, I better be a better version of myself. If I'm going to be a great leader, I better be a better version of myself. If I'm going to start a company and it's going to succeed, I better be a better version of myself. That's ego versus humility, right?
Yeah.
So the ego says, I can do the thing. Humility says, I better grow if I'm going to do it.
So you think that you need to be in unison?
Unison? Yes.
Unison?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that just the word of the day for you?
Yeah. So I was thinking, I think I'm going to say this wrong. Unison?
Yeah, you seem uncomfortable with what you're about to say.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I just couldn't tell if I was going to say it right. Because at first I was thinking unisex, but I was like...
that's not what you were looking for.
That's not the word. Unison.
Unisex is meant for both sexes.
Yes. They need to coexist. Like you can't have one...
100%.
You shouldn't have one without the other.
Absolutely, 100%. Yep. And when we talk about ego, it's not the absence of ego, it's how you manage the ego that matters. So,
right.
But the growth mindset is built on the back of humility, because if you feel like, to your point, the athlete, and again, we say athlete, but extends to any area of life, the athlete that thinks they're already good enough, then that ego and that pride that goes with that will not allow them to grow. Why should I go do the extra workout? Why should I go do my sprint work? Why should I go, catch 150 balls a day if I'm a wide receiver? Why should I? I'm already good enough. But the growth mindset and the humility says, no, I want to be great. I'm not good enough yet, so I'm going to do the hard work. I'm going to do the growth. And when it comes to being a leader, if we want to take it back to the topic of the episode, then we have to really manage the content we consume and the people we surround ourselves with. So if we talk about make the decision to be a leader, great. Live in reality, great. Here's where I want to go, great. Here's the person I need to become. And part of that, and the two main important pieces of that are, what are we consuming every day to grow, and who are we surrounding ourselves with to make sure that we continue to grow and we continue to be challenged.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next topic.
Is there another topic?
Our next segue. Sorry, I was on I'm looking at this number 4 here. It's like, how you become that. I really want to talk about how we've talked about what it needs to look like. We talked about humility and ego and pride, and we talked about kind of the vision of it. Now I think we should tackle let's explain, how do you actually execute? How do you take everything we've just said and how do you start executing it in your everyday life, and how do you get that how do I decide that, okay, I do want to be a leader? How do you get to that point, But
what are your thoughts? I'll let you kick it off.
All right. Well, for starting your growth and development journey, which I started literally 8 months ago. I just started this. I think you just got to do it. Well, first of all, you got to believe it, and you got to believe in yourself, and then you've got to cut out all those things that are going to tell you can't. because social media is going to tell you can't if your feed is wrong, or your friends are going to tell you can't because you've got bad friends. You're going to have so many things that are going to tell you can't do it. You know why? Because the second that you come to the realization you've broken free of what the world's been telling you, and you realize, oh shoot, like this is wrong. Like I don't want to be this. The devil sees you as a threat right then and there. Because before he didn't see you as a threat because you were just like everyone else and you're doing exactly what he wants you to do.
Yep.
But the second that the devil sees a threat, because the devil is a very, very brilliant guy, very smart. And I could go on and on about the stuff that he does, but he knows the second that you have that spark of wait a minute, like you take a step back and you're like, well, wait a minute, why am I running with everybody right now? The second you have that thought, he's going to do everything in his power to get you right back to where you were, because that's when you're going to be the most vulnerable, the easiest to influence, and you have to be able to recognize that and say, no, like Bill, like shut up, like just because you tell me I can't, like be quiet. Or social media is like, no, like you'll never be whatever it's telling you, and you try to get caught in it, and then you have all these things that are trying to tell you like it doesn't make sense. You have to be able to say no, like this isn't right. You have to hold true to what you believe. And then you've got to make that decision and start getting into your development. But the second the devil sees you as a threat is the second that he's going to start tempting you as hard as he can.
Yeah, and man, there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. So, but let's first talk about the things that we've already brought up. So, you mentioned, all right, if I'm going to coach a young person, all right, I have somebody in front of me, a young person who says, "Look, I want to be a leader. I don't know how, but I know I want to be a leader in life. And I know right now, in my reality, I'm not where I need to be." Okay, so what's the first step? And the first step would be, and it's really a first two steps. The first two steps, I've already said them, but I want to, explore them further. The first two steps are potentially, depending on your situation, change the people you spend the most time with, and change the content you consume. So you bring up social media, right? One of the first things I would tell a young person is you need to curate your social media feed.
100%.
One of the biggest things I see, if I'm looking at young people specifically, you guys are so caught up in comparison syndrome. You compare your life to what you see on social media, and you think, I'm not where they're at, and you start to lose belief in yourself. Or I'm not where they're at, so you start to lose patience. And you guys hear me say the term all the time. I think one of the ways we should attack life is through aggressive patience, right? We need to be aggressively attacking our goals, but be patient for the result, because that's just how life is. And I think your generation, a couple things happen. One, if you are aggressively attacking your goal, social media is causing you to not be patient, because you want to be where they're at. And what a better way to say that is you want to be where you think they're at.
Yeah.
Reality is they're probably not where they portray themselves to be, but you still want to have that. So you lose the patience. Yeah. And then what happens is, because you're not getting it quickly and you're not the person you're seeing on social media, you start to lose belief in yourself. And it really is catastrophic. So it's getting rid of comparison syndrome. And one of the ways we do that is having these kind of conversations, but also curating your social media feed to get the junk off of it. I have done this myself. Big piece of advice for anybody and this could be any age bracket. Any piece of social media you see that does not make you feel good about yourself, get rid of it.
Yep.
Unfollow today. And I would go through my feed right now and just unfollow everybody who doesn't make me feel good. Meaning I look at their life and think, I'm jealous of them. I'm envious of them. Why can't I be them? Get them off your feed. And fill your feed with people who uplift you, challenge you, push you to be great, but do it within the context of reality. Who aren't lying to you, who aren't renting nice cars and taking pictures in front of them and videos to make you think that they have these cars and houses, or people, or following the one-off, right? The one in a million who does make it at a young age, and you wonder why that can't be you. Get your social media to where everything that you see is bringing joy and fulfillment to your life, motivating you, pushing you, filling your head with the right kind of content. Curating the content you consume in your life, whether it's social media or elsewhere, is one of the biggest first steps we can take. The content you consume will 100% dictate the way you think.
100%.
So you have to make sure you're consuming the right content, whether it's social media, the podcasts you listen to, the books you read. Make sure you're doing or consuming the content that's going to push you forward and teach you how to be a better version of yourself.
I wish I could show you my social media feed because like my Instagram reel, I don't watch TikTok because TikTok I've tried it. It's too corrupt. I can't get a feed that I like that is gonna motivate me. It only brings me down. So I don't watch TikTok, but I do watch Instagram Reels and a lot for like, see what other people like me are doing, stuff like that, content ideas, all that. But I wish I could show you it. I mean, like my first video was always Andrew Tate. Like Andrew Tate says a lot of great things, and I don't agree with some of the stuff he says, but he says a lot of great things, a lot of things that are motivating. He's a very motivating guy. So it'll be like Andrew Tate, and then it'll be like another guy, some new guy who's talking about leadership, and all my stuff is motivating. I don't see the stuff of like this rich guy has got a nice car. I don't see that kind of stuff. I don't see any brain rot of like stupid videos that just aren't funny. But for some reason, the human brain gets stuck on, and they're like, oh yeah, this is good, yeah. Like I don't have any of that. My feed is literally motivating me, content idea, motivating me. So people are doing exactly what I'm doing because I have, like you said, curated it to do that.
How did you do it? How did you curate it?
You see stuff. It's hard. It's you literally go through your feed, and actually with Instagram, it's easy. Instagram will change your feed like that. TikTok takes forever. Instagram is like literally like that. So you start liking the videos that are good and scroll right. Don't even take the time to watch any video that's not going to help you. Scroll right past it because Instagram's going to watch that. They're going to know that you watched it for half a second. Boom, gone. The second you see something like that. And you also don't want to trap yourself when you're in a vulnerable spot of, oh my God, I'm going to get right back into that when you're trying not to. And so like literally I go through my Instagram and I'm literally, you can't see it, but I'm going to play it. The first video on my Instagram Reels.
Wasted is a day wasted. $10 wasted can come back tomorrow. 10 minutes wasted, that shit is gone forever.
Right? And
Too many young men are chasing girls before their purpose, bro. Stop doing that shit, bro. I'm telling you, because it's not going to be long before she figures out.
Man, I'm sick of people complaining about they're alone. Hey, can you call this guy and tell me feel alone? You get to be alone. You get to feel and find out who you really are. You get to spend time in your head.
That's why I'm telling you gym rats about our $10
Oh, sorry, that's an ad.
On a pedestal. I'm a man of purpose and a man of substance. So when we go down the list of priorities I have.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, that's great. And it's funny because it's interesting. I went on mine and thought the first one was a sports thing, but the second one was information or leadership stuff for kids.
The next stuff for the day, making tomorrow's lunches. They're just doing so many things. Yeah. And the kids can be doing all those things to be an absolute help and blessing in the home. You're doing a bunch of stuff.
But the point is, you curate your feed for those things, and so I have something that I like to talk about with especially young people. It's the 5 F's, and I may have talked about it last time I was on.
You did,
but it's something I coach a lot. The 5 F's are faith, family, friendships, fitness, and finances. Right, and those are the 5 areas of our life that we can really go and try to improve upon. So I think if you're looking for a way to curate your feed, look at the 5 F's: faith, family, friendships, fitness, and finances. Find as much information on those 5 topics as you can, right? And even within that, you're going to find good and bad information on all those topics. And you try to, over time, curate it to where you find the people that are giving good information, get rid of the ones that aren't. And the algorithm, to Zach's point, is very quick. It'll pick up on that and start giving you more of that, right? And I can't tell you how many really, 2 things, good things I learned from really high quality content makers in those areas. But secondly, is it gives me other ways to think about things, other ways to coach things. It gives me new verbiage and ways to say things, and it just grows me, right? And that way I get to be on social media, but it's not brain rot, as you like to say. So I think that really leaning into the content you consume, and it's hard. And it goes back to the first thing we talked about in this podcast. It's a decision. You absolutely cannot do what we're saying. You can absolutely skip this step. You can. But it will hold you back in ways that are indescribable. You need to be filling your head with the right content. It needs to be as many things in those 5 F's as you possibly can.
Yeah.
God, family, finances, health and fitness, friendships, how to grow those areas of your life. And if you do that, like we talked about, the younger you start that, the better your life's going to be. It's inarguable. And is it hard? Yes. Does it take discipline? Yes. Does it take mental toughness? Yes. Are you going to be the exception to the rule? Yes. Are you going to get ridiculed sometimes? Yes. Are people going to call you a dork or a nerd or a loser? Yeah. All those things are going to happen. But you're paying the price now for a better life later. And it's just a better way to go about things. You can absolutely do the opposite. You can. but you will pay a price for that. There's no free lunch, as they say. So the easier and the more fun your life is today, the harder it's going to be later. So, and I think that it one of the first things and it's one of the, we talk about it's a hard thing to do, but it's still one of the easiest things to do, and that's curate the content you listen to. Go to Spotify, find some leadership or podcasts that are in the 5F categories, right?
I recommend as a good first podcast, George Janko. I love George Janko. I would go watch him, and I would start with his Andrew Tate podcast, very good podcast, and I would go look at a bunch of his other ones. But I think he's a very good first podcast leadership, and he's more faith-based. He's not as much leadership, but he's more faith-based to start that foundation of it. And especially with episodes with Andrew Tate and then Cliff Netchell. I don't know how to say his last name. But.
Yeah, I don't know who that one is. I know the George Janko. But and something I was going to talk about, I'm glad you brought Andrew Tate back up. Can we talk about him for a minute?
Yeah.
He's an interesting topic. And so here's my take on Andrew Tate. He says a lot of things that I agree with. I think he gets attacked by society a lot because it goes against what society's trying to push towards these days, which is the feminization of men.
Yeah.
And he is for the masculinity of men, and I agree with him 100% on that. The feminization of men is one of the most horrible atrocities that our world has impressed upon us. I think that he has some really good content about being better and growing yourself. And I think he does say a lot of really good things. I think what we have to realize about Andrew Tate is he's a caricature. He created an online persona to get attention. So what I find interesting about him, and that's why I want to take a couple minutes to talk about him, is I don't believe he's actually the person he portrays himself to be online in a lot of ways. And I've heard people who have met him in person and say he's very gentle. He's a lot more soft-spoken. He's not quite the man he presents to be online. So he's a little bit inauthentic. And I think that's my issue with him. He's a little inauthentic. He smokes and drinks and does these things that are counterproductive, and the things that we don't
drink anymore.
And that's a new thing that I didn't know, but he's still, but he was smoking and drinking and doing these things, which is incongruent with his message, right? He
just smokes cigars. That's it.
There's some messages, some mixed messages with him that I don't love, but there's a lot. But what happens is because he's so bombastic and because he is overconfident and very prideful, which is another negative on him. His message that is good and healthy gets lost by a lot of people. So people just kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater with him. Yeah. I don't like him, so everything he says must be crap. And I think with him, we have to be very careful how we listen to him. And the way I listen to Andrew Tate is this. I try to see through the lack of authenticity, and I try to look past the bombastic nature, and I try to look past the prideful nature, and just listen to some of the essence of his message. And I think there is some beauty in that. So I think that we need to be careful with guys like him. We need to listen to some of the stuff they say and do, but also be smart enough and lead ourselves well enough to have the discernment to know what we should take from him and what we should leave. But that's also another good segue into, okay, well, if we're going to curate the content we consume, and I highly recommend it, books, podcasts, social media, then it's the people you surround yourself with. And I want to spend some time on this because I think this is, for young people, it's a very, very tough thing to do, but maybe the most important of all the things we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we have a whole podcast episode on this.
I know you do. Yeah, it was a good one. And I recommend you guys go back and listen to that. But I, just to give my 2 cents on that is there's some old adages, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Right? If you're the richest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. If you're the fittest person in the room, you're in the wrong. You never want to be the best because you lose the motivation. It's easy to get complacent when you're in a room of people that you're above, and I don't mean that as like you're better than them, but you're further along. Is probably a better way to say that.
Further along on the journey.
Right. You want to surround yourself with people who are pushing you, trying to grow you, and motivate you to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And as young people, I think young people struggle with that mightily because they lean into fun and they have a really hard time cutting people out of their lives because you so desperately at your age want the friends, you want the connectivity, you want that tribe, which is part of the human condition as well. We want that and we need that in our lives. But we have to be very smart. And I would tell you, anyone listening, you as well, that if you have people in your life that are pulling you towards average, or people in your life that are trying to convince you to do things that you know are counterproductive or that work against the goals you're trying to accomplish, they are not your friend. They are an enabler at best, and they are your enemy at worst.
Yeah.
That means they don't truly care about you and love you. People that care about you and love you are trying to pull you to greatness. Yep. They're trying to pull you to excellence, and they want to go along with you. So if we're going to curate the content we consume, we've got to bolster that with being around people who are doing the same, and people who are going into the right direction in life and not pulling you down. It's a very hard thing to do at any age. It's brutal at your age, but I would tell you it will make or break your life. If you're around fit people, you'll be fit. If you're around people who are making money, you'll make money. If you're around people who are strong in their faith, you'll be stronger in your faith. If you're around people who are close with their family, treat their family right, you'll do the same. People who have career goals and they're pushing towards those careers and they're doing whatever they can do to be great in those areas, you'll do the same. But the opposite is also true.
Yep.
And
you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
You are and it's so true that that's biblical. I mean, it really is. So it's that was interesting.
Sorry. Yes. Hey.
Is that for the freaks that make all the little comments on here? Oh my
God, dude! It's actually so bad.
Yeah, anyone watching, listening, I'm this man's father. The freaks that make comments on his short shorts or his feet, you're really freaking weird. I'm just gonna say that.
Dude, you're just a weirdo.
Just go away. Go away.
Yeah, and they'll put the timestamps of when
It's really weird.
Sometimes I'll hit this one. I'll wiggle my toes, and they'll put the timestamp of me doing that on there. And they'll be like 44 seconds or 44 minutes 18 seconds.
Think about the human, the depravity of the human who does that. But also within the topic of the day is what kind of leader of themselves are they? You have the inclination to do that, the weirdness to do that, and then the time to do that. Just side note, it's very bizarre.
It's weird. It's
really weird. And I would recommend another podcast for you guys that do that. So
I do not care. I'm just gonna let that be frank. You do whatever the hell you want. You do not bother me. I look at the comments sometimes because it shows up on my YouTube studio, and I scroll right past it and I don't look at it or think about it again. You keep doing it. I do not give a shit.
Yeah, it's a non-factor in life.
Dude, yeah,
it's a complete non-factor, but it is weird. We can at least comment on the fact that it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
And you're weird if you do it. So just being honest. So, but anyway, you want to make sure that, and I can't remember where we left off when I went on that little sidebar, but you just want to make sure that you have the fortitude is really the word to make really hard changes in your life and kick people out of your life that aren't pushing you and pulling you, and get rid of the people who are dragging you down, and have the strength to make that decision. Have the love for yourself, the belief in yourself. And I would tell young people, listen, have the love for your future spouse and your future kids enough to not let yourself be dragged down, because those people, even though they're not around right now and that's not maybe a part of your life, they're going to be a part of your life, and they want you to be the best version of yourself you can be today to create the best life for them when they do come, right? Yeah. So make the decision for the right reasons. Cut people out of your life that are dragging you down. Surround yourself with the right people. And that's hard to do. It takes time. And you guys have done a great job of that. If you watch how Zach and his friend group have done it, it's very, very interesting and powerful to watch. I've watched people come in and out of Zach's life, and it becomes like, he'll have a friend that comes around for a while, and he's hanging out, and is he part of the friend group now? Oh, and his answer is always the same, maybe. We'll see. You got to earn your right into his friend group, which I think is an amazing thing. And all of a sudden that friend will be gone, and I'll never see him again. Oh, what happened? Oh, well, they started drinking, or they are not strong in their faith and they refuse to grow in that area. Or basically they if he kept them in the friend group, they would drag them down. And that's not acceptable, right? That's having the fortitude and the love in yourself and the belief in yourself to create a friend group. And it takes time. I think you've been evolving this friend group for 2 years at least.
Yeah.
Right? And the size of it grows and shrinks depending on the phase of time that we're in. But you can kind of talk more about that and elaborate on that. But you have been intentional about the people you surround yourself with, and tell me and people watching what difference that has made.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about, like, I think in the second or third episode we talked about like our friend group and like how there's like just even in just the last year and a half, just watching it go from like huge number to now it's 9. And I think our firm friend group currently, things can happen, but is 9. And there's 9 of us, and it's a brotherhood, and there's 9, and we'll bring people in, and we'll take them. They'll bring people in, we'll try them, because at the end of the day, we still are going to help people. So we bring people in to at least try to help them or get them on the right path. But the second that we get the realization that they have not changed, they're not changing, they're not going to change.
They're not ready to be helped yet.
That is when, okay, it's time to go. It's time to go. And then we'll watch them as they leave our friend group. They're all good. They're all goody two shoes in here. We've watched people leave and start going down the complete wrong path just like that.
Yep. And that's somebody who, again, either didn't believe themselves, didn't love themselves enough, or didn't have enough people around them pushing them in the right direction. And what I love about you guys, and this is the sense that I get, is you don't push them out of the friend group with judgment. Mm-mm. You just do it because you refuse to be dragged down. And you want to be around people who are moving their life in the right direction. So with that being said, what difference has that made in your life, having that approach to building a friend group?
And I want to add that, I'll answer that in a second. I want to add that we still love these people, because God still calls us to love them. So the 15 people that probably used to be in our friend group and are not anymore, or used to hang out with us, I still love every single one of them. And then other than one, none has really done me wrong like crazy. Other than one kid has really done me wrong. But I still love them, but that does not mean that I'm going to let them into my close group. And what that has done for me, to answer your question, is allowed me to continue to grow and to continue to strive to be better, because instead of being with these people who are going to drag me down, I'm with people who are also trying to bring me up, and we're all on the way up together.
Yeah, so they talk about being a leader is lonely. You'll hear that a lot, and there's some truth in that. Because, and this is one of the reasons why, because you start to, listen, I'll say it this way. Let's talk kind of in the business world, right? Or it doesn't have to be business, but it can be in the world of athletics, business. Whenever there's teams of people, you talk about having a great culture and building a great culture. And what building a great culture does is it starts to, the people who can't acquiesce to that culture, or the people who refuse to grow with that culture, start to stand out more and more. As the culture gets better, the cultural misfits stand out more. Yep. And either they exit themselves from the culture, or they are exited from the culture, right? It's just the way it is, because it becomes so glaring, the differences. Mm-hmm. You can kind of bring that in your personal life as well. The more you grow as a leader, and the more you learn about leadership, and you see the beauty of leadership, the more glaring the shortcomings of the people around you become. You start to realize what it means to be a leader. You start to realize what the life of a leader looks like. You start to realize what a leader has to do. We talked about the things we have to do, and the things we have to consume, and the people we have to be around, and the values we have to create, and the decisions we have to make. You start to realize the difference between a leader and a follower, right? And the world is full of followers. And we learned that through COVID. Oh, yeah. The world is full of followers, right? So the leaders really look different, right? And they start to separate themselves, and it becomes very glaring. So as you start to grow yourself as a leader, the people around you who aren't doing that starts to become obvious, right? Yeah. And you have to start peeling them out of your life, or they'll exit your life. You'll see that just as much as you telling people to leave your life, they will voluntarily leave your life, because when they're around a leader, or they're around greatness, or somebody pursuing greatness, it turns the mirror back on themselves, and they got to realize, damn, I'm not what I thought I was, or what I hoped I would be, and that's uncomfortable. And what do we already say? We run to comfort. Yep. So the comfortable thing to do is get away from that person who's making me feel bad about myself because of how they're living their life, right? So people start to voluntarily leave your life, and you need to exit them from your life. So that becomes lonely. So we go back to what I was talking about. That creates a lonely environment. It's for a leader, it's table for one a lot of times. Oh, yeah. But it does not have to be that way. Mm-mm. Because what people do is, as those people exit their lives, they do not then take that next step and push towards building a friend group of other leaders who are doing what you guys are doing, right? So what I would tell anybody is, as those people exit your life, Be proactive about bringing people into your life who lift you up and push you and build that friend group. And then it doesn't have to be quite so lonely. Because I would say that you guys and your friend group, you're all growing as leaders, but none of you are lonely because you took that next step of growing a friend group of leaders and not just accepting the fact that leadership is lonely.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of experiences with all the examples you just gave with people who exited themselves. And I mean, like our old friend group split in two basically. And that other side of our friend group, that's exactly what they did. We made them uncomfortable with how much potential and leadership that we had, and they did not believe in themselves enough and think that they had it in them. So what they did is they left, and then some of them came back to our Bible study recently. Within the last 2 months or so, they came to our Bible study because we invited them, and we started talking about real shit and hard stuff that goes on, stuff that they were doing in their everyday life, and they didn't like that we were making them feel bad. And we weren't making them feel bad, but because we were talking about how biblically it's wrong, that made them feel bad about themselves, and then they quit and stopped coming. They stopped coming and found something easier to do.
Easier, yeah. And it's really tough when you can't get your life together to be around people who do have their life together. And one thing, I know we're coming towards the end here, but I want to highlight something, especially this again is one of those things that is at every age group, but I think that it really applies to young people, because I always say that when you get to be about 16, 17 years old, from that age to maybe 25 is the first time in your life you have adult problems. But you do not have adult coping mechanisms yet, right? So we have to cope with the hard things of life: stress, responsibility, insecurities, losing friends, maybe not accomplishing the goals you want to accomplish. You start having these big boy and girl problems, and we don't know how to cope with that. And the big one here is stress.
Yeah.
So what people do is, was that a voice crack?
I think it was.
and people going through puberty, such as yourself, is we don't have these coping mechanisms, so we turn to unhealthy ones. And I think what happens, if you look at what people come to your Bible study and maybe they drink and they smoke, or they do these unhealthy, counterproductive things, and you're turning the mirror back on them, and they got to realize, oh crap, I shouldn't be doing these things. But they're doing so it begs the question, why are they doing these things in the first place? A lot of times it's to feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
And it's to escape. They become an escape. I need to feel better. I am stressed. I am low dopamine. I'm low serotonin. I'm low oxytocin. I'm low on these feel-good chemicals. What can give me that quickly? Well, drugs, alcohol, social media, things like that can give it to me quickly. Boom. So they come to your Bible study, realize, and they know they shouldn't be doing these things, but it's the only thing they have in their life that helps them cope. So now what we have to do as leaders is introduce them to new coping mechanisms. And I always talk about coping mechanisms like a deck of cards, right? A lot of times people only have 2 or 3 cards they know how to play.
Yeah.
The ace, the king, and the queen. And that's drugs, alcohol, porn, dope. What was it? Drugs, alcohol, porn, whatever the other was. It escaped my mind.
Vape.
I don't know what it was. Social media. Gosh, right? That's the only cards they know how to play. But we have to make them understand there's 48 other cards in the deck.
Right.
And there's other coping mechanisms they can have. And one of them is God. And I would submit is maybe the best.
It is the best.
So, I think for young people, it's understanding you don't have to turn to drugs, alcohol, porn, and social media to feel good. There's other things you can do. And I think being around other people who are lifting up their lives can introduce you to those things. So that's why they run away from it, because they know they still need the coping mechanisms. You're making them feel like, or the Bible or God is making them feel like they chose the wrong ones, and they have chosen the wrong ones, but they don't know what else to do. So it's easier and more comfortable just to run away from it than try to confront that.
Yep. Cannot agree more.
Yeah.
We got you got the Bible verse in here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. So I know as we close this out, just quick review. Anyone out there who's looking to lead themselves better, I would invite you today to make a decision to do that. Make a decision today that you're going to be a leader and you're going to start leading yourself in a better way. Confront reality of your current situation and be honest with yourself, right? Have an honest conversation with yourself about the reality that you live in today. Determine where you want to go. Okay, what do you want your life to be? Create your vision for your life. And then determine what kind of man or woman you have to become to accomplish that vision. And that goes into the who you're going to surround yourself with, what content you're going to consume, what coping mechanisms you're going to choose, how are you going to improve your emotional intelligence, your self-awareness, all the things that we know, how do we grow your humility, all those things, right? Become growth-minded. Who do you have to become to accomplish those goals? And then do them consistently. Go through a consistent process of reevaluation, determining where you're at on the path at all times. Have you deviated? Are you still on the right path? If you deviated, what changes do you need to make to get back on the path? Constantly be evaluating your life and your success. Get back on the path and do that consistently. Everything I just named, do it consistently for the rest of your life, and greatness will come. Greatness will follow.
And then understand that when you make that decision, it's going to get really hard because the devil is not going to like it, and you're going to get attacked. And you have to be so firm in your beliefs that you can't let that affect you, because he's going to come, and he's going to come really freaking hard, because he does that for me. He does that for you, I assume. He does it for my brother. He does it for all my friends, because he knows that there is a threat in all of us, and he does not like it. So you have to know that it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging. He's going to come for you, but God's going to give you that way out. You're going to have a way out of every temptation the devil ever gives you. There's always going to be a way out. God doesn't let you be tempted by things that he knows you can't get through. So understand.
Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, no,
Oh, hopefully the mic didn't pick up on that.
It did. That's where I heard it from.
Yeah, that's a weird noise. Anyway,
so understand that he's going to come for you, and it's okay. And you are strong enough to do it. You just got to believe in yourself.
Yeah, and that comes back to, I agree with everything you just said, and that comes back to, I promise you, on the road to greatness, is going to be riddled with obstacles and setbacks. It's going to. And we call that the devil trying to intercede, and the devil trying to throw you off track, because you frighten him. Right? When you go for greatness, especially when you go for greatness and the glory of God, you scare the devil. And he's going to start putting temptation in your way. He's going to start putting obstacles in your way. He's going to start putting laziness and complacency in your way. He's going to give you every reason to quit. But we use the strength of God, we use the strength of our purpose, and we use the strength of the people around us to overcome those obstacles and to get through those temptations. And if we do give in and we do fail, we pick ourselves back up, dust ourselves off, and we keep moving forward until the devil, and this is the only time I will say this word on this podcast, fuck you. Because he's the only one that deserves that kind of language. Get out of my way, because I'm going for greatness, and I'm doing it for the glory of God.
Yeah.
And just know that you got to have that level of emotional intelligence. You've got to have that level of belief in yourself, and you've got to be able to manage those setbacks, because I promise they're coming. And it's very easy to get on the right track, and I see it all the time. To get on the right track, be going down the direction you want to go, becoming the leader you want to become, but the first obstacle you hit, boom, you bail. Because you think, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, see, I knew it wouldn't work, all those things we tell ourselves, those lies we tell ourselves. So what is another quality of the many that a great leader has? They have the ability to push through even when things get hard, right? They have the mental fortitude to push through and continue towards their purpose, even when it looks like it's not working out. So having that emotional intelligence is another area of our life we can grow. And listen, everything we talked about today, as we wrap up, everything we talked about today, you pull any piece of it out, it can be its own episode, right? So this episode wasn't meant to be an exhaustive look at every one of these aspects of leading yourself. What I really want to do today is set the stage, set the scene for what it even means and look like to be a great leader of yourself. And now you can take any piece of what we talked about today and build it out yourself, research it yourself. I'm sure we'll do episodes. You guys will do episodes on these topics that you can come back to and learn from. But when you listen to everything we said today, what areas of your life are you suffering in? What areas of your life, as we live in reality, do you realize you have to grow in? And go research how to be better in those areas. And the more you do that, like it's being a great leader of yourself and a great leader of people is a process. It's a lifelong process. You don't decide today to be a great leader and wake up tomorrow already being one, right? You have to lean into it. You have to research, you have to read, you have to consume, you have to grow, you have to apply, you have to attempt things. You got to do hard things and fail and learn and grow. And you've got to do all these things that eventually stacked on top of each other, these little micro things that you do build up to greatness one day. but you've got to make the decision to do so. And so wherever anything we said today that maybe you think, wow, I suffer in that area or I'm not great in that area, try to be better at it. And if you heard something we said today and you're like, man, I'm good at that, try to lean into that strength and use that as the thing that makes you a great leader, right? So don't be intimidated by how many things we talked about today. Don't worry so much that you don't have it all figured out. That's the point. Very few people do at any age.
Yeah.
Just start the process today and start chipping away at it, and you'll wake up in 5, 10, 15 years with a life you never imagined because you started that process today.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap this baby
You got
up.
to give the Bible verse.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
So I love this Bible verse, especially for young people. It's Timothy 4:12, and it says, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you were young." You talk about, Zach and Josh and the people on this podcast being young. Well, can you really be a leader when you're young if you don't have the life experience? Absolutely you can, because all you need is one requirement to be a leader, and that's people following you. And you can do that at any age. So even the Bible says, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech and conduct and love and faith and in purity. And that is the challenge right from the Bible for young people. You can start leading today. And now your job is to make yourself the best leader you can be as your life progresses.
Beautiful. Great way to end off that podcast. I wanted to give a little side note that earlier in the podcast you mentioned patient aggression. And let's go back to 2 episodes ago when I had Liam and Will on here, my 2 buddies, and Liam said something that Zach's dad always says, Mr. Jason always says, is passive or
aggressive patience.
Patient aggression.
You can say it either way. It works
Yes.
in both ways. You can say patiently aggressive or aggressive patience.
Right. And Liam sat there and honed in on it, but he was like, and that's what Zach's dad said, and then here you are actually saying it. I thought that was a cool little reference, cross-reference little situation there.
Yep. It's a great way to approach life. It's a great way. Be aggressive and figure out your purpose, figure out your vision, attack those things aggressively, but be patient for the results.
Yep.
Because if we're not patient, we'll give up too soon.
I love that.
Yep.
All right. Anything else you got to say?
No, man, I do appreciate you letting me co-host today. Josh, we missed you. This is Josh's seat. This is not my seat. I'm just keeping it warm for him while he's off doing something for the summer. But let you know if you're watching, we love you, we miss you, and can't wait for you to be back. And just thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you being willing to do a podcast with me. I know, terrible, right?
Awful, the worst, yeah.
Yeah, you do a great job. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I did a good job faking it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and we'll see you guys in the next one.